Hello, Wiki peeps, and welcome to this installment of the WikiTree LiveCast. Live this week from the BIFHSGO Fall Conference here at Ottawa City, Ben Franklin Place. Yes, there was a Ben Franklin in Ottawa, so it's not the same Ben Franklin guy from the US, the cute guy with the glasses. So we're here today to talk about the US Southern Colonies. The Source-A-Thon is going on. There's actually a live Source-A-Thon hangout going on concurrently for the next 5 or 6 minutes. But the US Southern Colonies, why would I do a US Southern Colonies from a British Isles Family History Society of Greater Ottawa Conference? A, because I'm here and that's the person who does the live cast. But B, because a lot of the US colonies were British colonies. So there's a lot of information that's going on here that we're hearing about the British colonies and how the US Southern Colonies started, how sourcing happens, what you can do with sourcing. So it's been really interesting. But today we're talking about specifically WikiTree's US Southern Colonies, and I've got a bit of a slideshow to start. But first, I'm going to introduce you to Sarah Rojas. Say hello, Sarah.
Hi, everybody.
And Sarah is active. She's working, she lives in Florida, and she is working on Florida information and working on maybe beefing up some of the Florida stuff for the US Southern Colonies, which will be great. So right now I'm going to share my screen and tell you about the US Southern Colonies project. Let's hope we can do a share. Uh-oh. We'll stop sharing. Try it again. Yeah, I don't like that. So, and so Sarah, I'm just going to go through the information because my screen share is not coming up. But the US Southern Colonies Project on WikiTree is a very big project. It's a popular project, and there are so many people involved in the project. There are quite a few members, and I'll break that information out into another screen here so I can just talk about it. But the US Southern Colonies Project is something that was started about 3 years ago with NAEX, myself, and Paula Ruling. We saw a need because there were so many people on WikiTree who were adding profiles to US Southern Colonies people that we wanted to make sure that we had a project that people could use to put resources and information and also beef up some of the profiles of some significant Southern colonies. So I pulled up the US Southern Colonies Project on a different computer here. I could actually turn it around. This would be funny. This is going to be funny. Here is the map of the US Southern Colonies. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see.
That's hilarious. So I don't know what the technical issue is with me not being able to show that. But the US Southern Colonies Project has a join procedure just like all the other projects. I'm not sure that they actually have a join feed because people are constantly joining the project. There is a G2G following feed, and the title of the G2G feed to join that project would be, no, okay, nothing is going right. So there's also a Southern Colonies Google group, and there's a Google Plus group as well. And if you are following US Colonies information, you want to add that tag to any discussions you have in G2G. And if it's something that you're very passionate about, make sure you add it to your profile tags as well. The US Southern Colonies has sub-projects, and there are so many projects that they've been broken up into in Bill's Family History Fall Conference. The British sub-projects are the Carolinas, of course, was a penal colony, which people don't really know that. Maryland, Virginia, Jamestown, there's a specific set aside for Jamestown. Southern pioneers. Yes, the people that lived in upstate South Carolina during the early 1700s were definitely pioneers, which one of my fifth great grandfather lived. There's German New River Settlement is a sub-project. There are French colonies associated with the US Southern Colonies, and those Southern colonies actually, even though they're Southern, the Southern colonies that were French actually went way up into Canada. Now, I have a Canadian sitting right here next to me who will dispute this map because the Canadians say, no, those were French colonies that went south. So we'll see. We won't have a discussion about that right now. So the French colonies that were a part of the U.S. Southern Colony, of course, Louisiana is the biggest one in the south. There's also a Spanish Louisiana colony, and this is where Sarah, our guest today, is going to come in big time. The Spanish colonies that were U.S. Southern Colonies, Nueva España, Texas, Arizona, yes, they went way west, California, Nevada, and New Mexico and Utah. Yes, parts of the Southern Colonies Project went that far west. A lot of people don't realize that when the Carolina colonies were actually set up, they went from the coast as far west as they could possibly go. So technically, they went all the way across the country, despite what the Native Americans believed, where they were living. All the colonies, the British set foot on the beach and said, we own everything now. So, have some of the Southern colonies that cover some of the Mexico provinces like Baja, the Provincia of Coahuila, Durango, Nueva León, Nueva Santander, Nueva Vizcaya, and Sonora. So there were lots. There's also specific sub-projects on Southern pioneers. There's a sub-project on slavery in the Southern colonies, and I'm going to touch on that specifically in just a minute. I actually did a really fun the Southern Colonies Slavery Project a week ago. The Native Americans Project actually started out as one of the Westward Ho projects because there wasn't a lot of input or people who were interested in doing the Native American projects. That has spun off now into an umbrella project for all of the Native American tribes and projects. And then there's also some family brick walls that are specific to the U.S. Southern Colonies, and there's one for the U.S. Southern Colonies and one that is specifically for the Carolina colony for brick walls. The project page also has resources set up for people and links to sub-projects and images that you can use on pages that you want to set up for the Southern Colonies. The main project goals are to identify the Southern colonists, add a template to, and add project protection to profiles that are being merged or added to a little bit people and wanting to keep track of what's going on. Profile members want to contribute to the resource pages and work on profile improvement and add categories to those so that WikiTree's fabulous database can set up that information so that people can use the database abilities to do stuff. So if you want to join the project, go over to the menus on the top right of your page and click on Find and go down to Projects and follow it down to where it says U.S. Southern Colonies. You can also plop into the Google Plus or the Google Mail group and find out information. There are a lot of resources that have being added for Southern colonists, the Scotch-Irish influence in Pennsylvania down through following the wagon trail down into North Carolina and South Carolina. There's a huge Scotch-Irish influence in that area, and if you ever listen to bluegrass, you know that bluegrass has its roots in those Irish settlers in that area, which is why if you cut me, I will bleed the sound of bluegrass music. So Sarah, let's you and I have some conversations about what's going on. I want to look and see really quick if I can go. Let me go to my page here. I'm going to tell you how many people are actually involved in the project. It is an incredibly active project on WikiTree. And I don't have all my badges up, so in WikiTree, having the Source-A-Thon going on all weekend, we can talk about Southern sources and how Southern sources got destroyed. And we can also talk about how when the British came through, when the French came through, and when the Spanish came through, how sources differ from one group to another group, and how those groups kept records. And Sarah and I were talking just a little while ago that I said that I thought that the Spanish were sometimes, or even the Portuguese, were sometimes better than the English and the French at keeping those records. It was almost like the Spanish kind of came over and stood their ground, and their, you know, it stayed Spanish. It's still, Florida is still Spanish, except for all the Canadians who go down for January and March. So, Sarah, so what's your take on the Southern Colonies in Florida? I know that you're a big Floridian. You live down in the Panhandle. What is your take on what's going on with the Southern Colonies Project?
Well, I know that at least, you know, when I was living in Miami, it doesn't seem like there's a big genealogy. A lot of people aren't that interested in genealogy, even though, like, we have at the library that our main library has a huge Florida genealogy section. I would always be going in there. And I think at least the people in Florida that are interested in genealogy, I don't think they're on WikiTree just yet. I know there's a few people here and there, but I'd love to get some people in focusing on Florida, because there's such interesting history and genealogies of Florida. So,
and early history.
Yeah, like one of the big Henry Flagler. You know, I found his profile on WikiTree, but it's very bare. Not as
So did you work to beef up his profile and add categories and do sourcing?
Yeah, that's definitely a goal. You know, I'd love to, and then also adding some of the other big players in Florida that I noticed that aren't on WikiTree, like Julia Tuttle. She was a huge. She basically founded Miami. You know, so she was a big part in helping Miami grow. So, and she's not on WikiTree, at least the last time I checked. So
she's not. So that's something you could add.
Yeah, definitely.
So what specifically are the areas that you are most passionate about as a genealogist?
Well, my maiden name, Callis, I have a one name study, and they're mostly, a lot of them are from Virginia. And so I've done a lot of Virginia research, and then also some Alabama. And so that's mostly been my focus. Again, there's a lot. I have a huge, let me actually show you. I have it here. Huge book on the Callis family.
Did you write that? Did you write that?
My grandma helped put it together, but no, it was passed down to me. I'm in this book, but
cool.
But yeah.
It's cool what our ancestors have done for us. And I was in a workshop, or not a workshop, I was in a session this morning, and they were talking about how the census records in Canada and in Britain were filled out over a long period of time. Gillian Leach did that, and she was talking about how it was really something that the census taker really had to be good about writing down stuff, or at some point they were doing all of the stuff, you know, they would give you a form and you'd fill it out. So that source information, knowing how to weed out the real stuff from the not so real stuff is a thing.
Yeah.
So what else have you been working on? What else has your grandmother given you? Was she like the major genealogist in your family?
Oh yeah, she passed away a few years ago, so I've been slowly going through. She has boxes upon boxes of books. She never threw anything away. I even have she has old textbooks and everything that she had, old receipts from the 1800s that was passed down from my family. She has worked both sides. Her side of the family, Callis was actually her husband's side of the family. So yeah, she passed all of these. She had a whole bunch of books. She passed all of this stuff down to me, and that's how I started genealogy. You know, usually you don't see a lot of young genealogists like myself. So yeah.
Yeah, you would stand out a bit right now here. Although there are young people that there are more young people getting involved, especially people who are studying history and stuff like that. So as far as Florida goes, what specific things do you want to do with the Florida project to make it better, to make it more collaborative?
Well, definitely, you see maybe focus on, building the specific colonies, like the British colony, Florida, the French colony, Florida, because Florida was owned by British, French, and the Spanish at one point in time. And, and then slowly, because a lot of people who live in Florida don't think that Florida has the same amount of history as the rest of the colonies.
And when you say don't think it has the same amount of history, does that mean records, buildings?
I think in both senses, because when you look at the 13 colonies, they have, a lot of people are really interested in all those, and South Carolina, Virginia, there's lots of records. But when you think of, a lot of people, when they think of Florida, especially South Florida, they're like, oh, we don't have a lot of history, not a lot of genealogy sources. But there are, it just has to be made aware that we have all of this information available. And I think that's one thing that needs to be done. So.
And WikiTree is well positioned to do that, because when you add information to WikiTree, the search engines pick up on it and bump up those searches to the top of the search results page. That's interesting. So when was Florida first established? Who was the first person in Florida? Was it a Spaniard?
The first person in Florida would have to have been the Native Americans.
There you go, yeah.
But Ponce de Leon was one of the first Spanish, one of the first settlers who discovered Florida. And then we had the French who came in, and there were lots of fighting over St. Augustine and stuff. And then they eventually moved all the way down to Florida. We had some of the pioneers. One of the big pioneers that I learned about in Florida history was Ralph Monroe. So he was a big pioneer who helped South Florida grow as a civilization. So
you have a strong connection to South Florida. Are there a lot of historical?
You were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, is there an archive in South Florida that people can use?
You saying genealogy sources?
Is there an archive or a history center or anything in South Florida that people can?
There is a family history center, but it's only open one day of the week, I believe, when I was checking. Our main library does have a huge Florida genealogy section down in Miami, and I'm sure other and also where I am here in Tallahassee, the main state archives are here as well. And so there are a lot of resources.
And as a genealogist, when you moved so close to the state archives, did you drool?
Yeah, I've only been up here for about a month, so I haven't gotten a chance to go over there yet. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to head on over there, see what they have.
In other parts of the Southern colonies, there are issues with sources disappearing because of the Civil War, the fires and stuff. Did the Civil War really touch very much of Florida? And in that, were sources destroyed, documents destroyed?
I haven't gone in, because I personally don't have a lot of family in Florida, so I only know of the big players in Florida. And I plan on doing more research in Florida. But yeah, the Civil War was a big thing, an impact on Florida. And I'm assuming that records were destroyed. I wouldn't be able to tell you which ones, but yeah,
well, flying back to further in your history up to Virginia, you have big family, deep family connections into Virginia. What kind of research have you been working on in Virginia?
Well, I only been using what I have access online and what I have from my from what has been passed down to me. I've used you know, the land grants, wills, census records, birth records, death records. I think, you know, what we have available online is wonderful. I wish definitely now that I'm closer to Virginia, definitely planning on making a trip to do some physical searching and go see my family where they were. So,
do you guys have reunions up in Virginia?
Well, actually, because since my father's side, he's actually the only child of an only child, so that side of the family is not that big. But my family up in Pennsylvania, my mother's side, they do family reunions, and I have gone to one when I was younger, and that's a big side of the family.
That's fun. That's fun. Well, you have an opportunity to make the family bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Virginia, where else did your family live in the early colonies?
I know I had some. There's some who were in the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina. We have the Alabama and Georgia. I did have some who were originally in Pennsylvania and they came down to Tennessee, Kentucky. They traveled from, you know, going west.
Down the wagon road, yeah, the great wagon road. To jump off now to a bit of the other stuff. The blog that I wrote last week was about a family that actually is here in Ottawa that I was doing some research for, who had early slave connections. And in trying to figure out how to find information on the possibility that this slave family moved to Port Hope, Ontario, I did a lot of searching and trying to figure out stuff on slavery and how to find sources and information. It is so hard to work with slave ancestry. And so I was spending a lot of time looking for stuff and not finding information, or finding stories or bits and pieces, but nothing written down. And I was on another DNA project page, and I saw in the very top listing of the results page for Y-DNA, I recognized African haplogroups. And I thought, oh my word, all of these people lived in the US, the most distant ancestors lived in the US in the 1830s, the 1840s, the 1850s, and I realized that I was looking at slave, basically a slave DNA portion of that specific surname project. We were talking about, I got in conversations with people about how, as WikiTreeers, what we can do to people who are doing slave ancestry through our WikiTree slavery project is to add information, to add the slave owner in South Carolina, slave owner in Greenville County, South Carolina, slave owner in Charleston. So that kind of information would be important to add to WikiTree when we add our profiles, to put that information and make it be available and put it out there. Is there anything else in the Southern Colonies Project that you're interested in, Sarah?
I mean, I'm pretty much interested in all things, but yeah, you know, Florida, you know, since I live here, you know, in the states that my family's mostly in, you know, Virginia is definitely a big state that I do a lot of research in. So,
how far back do you go? Do you go to Jamestown or anything like that?
Well, the book that I showed you, they actually have gone back all the way, you know, from when they came from England, from before, you know, they settled here in the United States. Yeah, so that side of I mean, I'm still, this book is not fully sourced, so that's what I've also been doing, you know, connecting, because it's just, you know, the names. that somebody else has put together. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to also, you know, make the connection. That's why I have the CALS project, you know, finding sources, making the connection. But yeah, I have a lot of family that's gone back. At least I found most lines going back to at least to the Revolutionary War, if not the Civil War before, you know. So.
And when we were talking before the live cast, you actually have connection to the Sons of the American Revolution?
Daughters, yeah, the Daughters of the American Revolution,
yes.
Yeah.
And is that something that you want to pursue yourself to get a DAR?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm young, so you know, the money thing's tight. So you know, that's like an end. You know, that's like a, you know, you have to pay some money. But yeah, that's definitely something I want to do. My grandmother actually had saved the application for me to do. You know, she had the original paper one. She has the paper documents still of them.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely something that I want to do. So.
I'm trying to follow also at the same time. Emma is busy with the Source-A-Thon, and I'm looking over, and we had a database question from a gentleman about Bill Warren, who's asking if WikiTree is considered a semantic database. That's not a question you should be asking me. But yeah, no, I don't know. Semantic. So, do we have any genealogy-related questions? And he says the semantic database question, it seems unlikely, but I am not a WikiTree expert. I'm not a WikiTree expert on the technical back end of WikiTree. Mm-hmm. So, Sarah, there's any other stuff that you're working on that you wanted to talk about today?
Well, I am the leader now of the Arborist project, so I've been doing a lot of, yeah, a recent development, but yeah, so I've been doing some Arborist, yeah, so I've been working on the Arborist project. You know, Robin handed it off to me. She's been leading me very well on all of everything that I have to do. So that's another thing that I've been working on as well. So.
And the arborists do work on the many Southern colonists who have lots of merges.
Yes.
Yeah, I have the Teague family is my arch nemesis on WikiTree, because the Teague family that everybody seems to want to be connected to and attempt to merge a lot of people into that family. So that's the arborists.
Yeah.
Working as an arborist myself, that's something that I work on when I'm working on my own stuff as well.
Yeah.
Anything specifically in the project that's new or exciting?
Nothing new yet, but I do plan on making some changes here and there. We were talking earlier about, you know, the estimate dates. That would help a lot. You know, maybe for those profiles that are connected but themselves don't have dates added, you know, trying to incorporate a way to put an estimated date in regards would help with the merging. So when you have that list of potential merges, you can actually see a date to see, oh no, it can't be related, they're in a different century. You know, they can't be
right.
Or at least, and also locations. You know, a lot of profiles don't even have locations, not even a country. So you have no basis as to where these people are. So I think that kind of work, putting it somehow into the arborist's work, would help these people sort things out.
Well, and when you're looking at a profile that doesn't have a location or a date,
mm-hmm.
I try and follow the father's line or the mother's line back, and try and just see if I can figure out a general region they may have lived and estimate it. There's also the whole relationship status indicator fields that you can fill out when you're in the edit mode. You can click confident or even DNA confirmed if you've done the triangulation correctly. There's lots of ways to check that information to see if it's working correctly. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a short live cast today because we weren't able to present the presentation. I will say that coming up on October the 28th, we're going to have someone actually present a presentation during the live cast. It's going to be a new to WikiTree and kind of an introduction to WikiTree LiveCast presented by Leanne Cooper. So that'll be on the 28th at 3 o'clock. The Source-A-Thon is ongoing. It is into its 72, starting into its big time 72 hours. And I know that they just covered this in the live cast, but I can tell you again really quickly. The top team is Team Roses with 2,641 sources added. And let's look and see. I won't tell you how many sources Sarah's done. Yeah, I won't tell you how many sources I've done. But Deb Durham is still in the lead with 519 with Lucy Lavelle got knocked out of the tied position with her. She's down to 510. So things are really swimming along really well with the Source-A-Thon, and you guys keep sourcing, and we'll see you at the end of October with Leanne Cooper. Thank you so much, Sarah, for hanging out and talking to us.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, about the US Southern Colonies and your new work with the Arborists Project. That's really great. And we'll see you at the end of October.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.